All right, guys, here we are back here on this farm with my friend here. Nice older gentleman. You can see stuff stuck back in the weeds, and we're gonna rescue something really fun and very rare. Check this out. 1971 Torino Convertible GT. One of only 1,600 71 Torino convertibles. Hideaway headlights, power disc brakes, man, power windows. I keep saying and I keep repeating myself, but I mean, like the hideaway headlights alone, I mean, they go for $2,000-$3,000. You know, finding a car like this, it just doesn't happen every day. And back here in the corner, there are more. There's a whole pile of cars back here, and there's an F100 back in the corner over here. And this older gentleman's been collecting this stuff for quite some time. And he's actually got a Boss 429 motor and a 70 Mach 1 also. So, like I said, super cool find. Really excited. Gonna pull this thing out of here shortly. So, all right, we got the Torino unburied. As you can see, we get the fence out of the way. And man, you really get to get a feel for what this car looks like. Factory 351 Cleveland in the car. 2-barrel AC, power disc brakes, power steering. Really neat piece here. If you look at these power windows, you don't often see power windows in the Torino. Not a bucket seat console car, but bucket seats are currently sitting in it. And as you can see, it's Torino GT and convertible all there. Obviously, looking at the taillight panel, you can see all the GT taillight panel stuff. I mean, just, again, really neat car. We're gonna get this thing out of here. Here we go. Here we go. All right, guys. I'm having a blast, guys. Check this thing out, man. We are hustling 71 GT convertible. Look at that bad boy. Whew. All right, there it is. We got the 71 Torino convertible on the car trailer, strapping it down and preparing to take it home and get it cleaned up and see if this 1971 Torino barn find, we're gonna find out if this thing is gonna run. Man, it's 9:30, it's dark outside. I just got back with the car, but before I put this thing in my garage, first things first, we gotta get all of the nasties off of this thing. So check out the before and after. Let's go. Torino is now clean. We're gonna have to get it back home and get the wheels and tires changed out. But, I mean, it cleaned up pretty nice. Interior cleaned up pretty good. Back seats cleaned up okay. This car, you know, I'm hoping it's gonna run. We're gonna find out after all these years of this bad boy sitting. It is officially in the garage after getting all that scum and all that debris, everything out of the car. Man, I'm stoked. I can't wait to find out, is this thing gonna run? So the original or the previous owner actually told me, he said he drove this car into that spot where we pulled it out with the tractor about 20 years ago. He said he drove it, but that doesn't mean any kind of guarantees here on whether or not this thing's gonna run after all this time. Now, I'm a little concerned because we got some kind of shoddy wiring over here. It's been sitting exposed for quite some time. Obviously, we're gonna have to do a few other things here. I'm gonna check the ignition system, and I've got a brand new Carter fuel pump. So I'm gonna stick a fuel pump on it, dump some fuel down the carburetor, see if it'll turn over. I did already check here. I was able to grab the fan by my hand here, and I was able to determine that the engine is not seized. And that's something I did first. And that's something that's really important in a situation like this. I don't care if somebody tells you it runs or not. If you cannot spin that engine over, if you can't grab that engine and spin it over, sometimes you need a wrench to do that. But if you can't spin this engine over, it's going to be a locked up motor, which means it's probably going to have to come apart because it's probably not going to break itself free. Now, that's not always the case, but more often than not if the engine's locked up. Fortunately, this one is not locked up. So we've got that going for us already. I've got that brand new fuel pump I'm going to stick into it. And so I'm going to spend about, I don't know, maybe half an hour, something like that. And let's see if I can get this thing running. So stay tuned for the results here. All right, so far one of the things I did was I had to put a starter in the car. So I put a battery in and it felt like I was getting power going to the starter, but nothing was happening. So I'll put a starter in the car. We're about to find out what is going to happen. So I'm going to turn that key. Hopefully everything works. Check this out, guys. Okay, so it's turning over now, but it seems like we don't have any spark. I did put some fuel in a little container here and fed it to the pump, so we could have a pump issue. But the thing turns over. Oh my goodness, it is alive. After 20 years, the thing actually spins over with the starter. I'm super stoked. So I'm gonna check the spark now, check the ignition system, see what works on the ignition system, and then make sure that we're getting fuel. And I mean, if everything goes well, hopefully this thing will run. All right, so here's the test. I did find out that the points inside of the distributor were corroded. So I took a little bit of sandpaper, I just sanded in between the points and cleaned them up. After doing that, I dumped a little fuel in it, and we're about to find out because I was getting spark on one of the spark plugs, but it was super, super weak. So I pulled that plug and then figured out, let's pull the cap. So I pulled the cap, cleaned the points. Let's see what happens. You ready? I'm stoked. I think it's gonna happen. I honestly do. I think after 20 years of this car sitting, I think it's about to fire up. So let's turn the key. Let's see what happens. Okay, how exciting was that? This car hasn't run since 2005. It was parked in that spot where we pulled it out with the tractor. So I was kind of confident it was gonna run just because I could spin it over by hand. Remember, I showed you guys that little video of me moving it by hand. But you really never know until you start to tear into these things. The carburetor might need to be rebuilt. The coils could be bad. The wires could have been eaten by mice. The plugs could have been fouled. I mean, there could be a myriad of things going on here. But something simple as cleaning the ignition system, checking the starter, doing a few things like that. I did end up replacing one of those wires here because it was just not getting a clear, solid connection. But man, one of the cool surprises of the car actually running was, did you notice that the headlight doors moved? That's correct, man. After all these years, the vacuum actuator in the hideaway headlights, this was an option on these cars, the vacuum actuator on the hideaway headlights are still working. So how cool is that? I got one more thing before you guys go. I got one more thing I need to actually check, and that is this. I wonder if the car will move under its own power. I wonder if it'll actually go in and out of the driveway. Now I know the brakes don't work. I know that for a fact. So I got to be super careful once I pop this thing in gear, because if I pop it in gear, I don't think my wife would appreciate me putting the front end of this car into our kitchen. But we're gonna find out what happens. So I'm gonna check the power steering fluid, make sure that that's not leaking and squealing, and then I'm gonna check the transmission fluid and a couple of other fluids before I do anything. And then from that point, I'm gonna pop this thing in gear and let's see what happens. So let's go. All right, so here we are, running, driving, moving under our own power. Goodness, almost 20 years this car just sat in a barn, neglected, forgotten since 2005. And here we are, running, driving, moving under its own power. Because the headlight door actuators actually opened up and moved, I was also curious about one more thing, and that is this little power button, this little power top switch right here. And so I did a little bit of checking just because I was curious, and sure enough, check this out, the power top actually works. So the power top works, the hideaway headlight works, the car moves under its own power. It's now running. Obviously the exhaust needs to be done, the brakes do need to be done, so that's definitely a safety issue here. But how cool is this to be able to save one of only 1,600 ever produced 1971 Torino GT convertibles? Guys, thanks you for joining me here at Lost and Found Classics for another fun find, bringing this car back to life. And if you like this content and you want to see more, guys, watching this, sharing this, and subscribing to the channel is going to help me be able to create more content, and it's going to motivate me to create more content to get your guys' feedback and your comments. So thanks for sharing this, thanks for liking, thanks for subscribing, thanks for watching, and thanks for going on this fun journey with me here today at Lost and Found Classics. Stay tuned for more fun and join the adventure here at Lost and Found Classics.